can provoking Islamophobia take a politician closer to being British Prime Minister? Former British Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson has been accused of exactly that in order to open his route to the top post in the ruling Conservative Party. The criticism arose after Johnson published an article in a national British newspaper describing Muslim women wearing the burqa as looking like letterboxes and bank robbers. Labour Member of Parliament David Lammy said Johnson was fanning the flames of Islamophobia to propel his own electoral ambitions. In an article written for a national newspaper, Johnson said he was against a ban by Denmark on the use of burqas and niqabs. But he also said the cloth was oppressive and women who wore it looked like letterboxes and bank robbers. But Naz Shah MP, Labour's shadow equalities minister, said Johnson was deliberately attacking Muslim women to reach out to the far right. He said describing women like that and describing Islam as a problem was a calculated attack. It has been claimed that Mr. Johnson's comments caused Muslim women to suffer attacks, with their burqas being pulled off by force. It has also been suggested that verbal attacks were directly linked to Johnson's provocative description in the article of women wearing the burqa. One such attack happened just after his comments were made in London, with 2 women targeted the next day in the capital. Other women have also experienced verbal abuse because of clothing associated with their religion. Are Boris Johnson's comments about Muslim women deliberately provocative? And have these comments provoked a racist reaction amongst the British public? Simple questions with important answers. And let's start with this. To what extent do the public know that Boris Johnson described Muslim women wearing the burqa as looking like letterboxes and bank robbers? And what do they think of this? We asked them. Here's what they told us.
It wasn't the right thing to say, obviously, but you can see where he's coming from with it. Yeah, they choose for us, well, they want us not to wear like swimming costumes and things in their countries. So, in a way, why should they have to cover up here?
That's his character. I reckon it's something he said sort of stupidly without really fully analysing what he was saying. It's obviously probably not the best thing to say, but I don't think he meant it in bad taste.
I think it's undiplomatic of him. I think he should be more cautious about what he says. And I think as a politician, he should be a little bit more wary of what he might incite with his comments.
I actually agree. My wife and daughter couldn't come over to their country of origin and wear a bikini, so yes, they are slightly intimidating. I think if you want to integrate into society, then play by a few rules, really. So I actually agree. The way he went about it, maybe not, but...
Obviously not a good thing to say, first and foremost. I think he can be a bit crazy, can't he? But I think he definitely needs to think before what he says.
I have a mixed opinion. I think that in some cases, like France, where it's been banned, but when they come to the UK, they have the right to wear whatever they want.
I don't think he meant any harm. I think it's just an expression. And, he's a politician, and I still say he doesn't mean any harm.
I think it's outrageous. I think it's a bit racist. Like, you can't be describing people like that. It's not right.
Yes, I did, and I heard somebody last night on Newsnight saying he's burqa'd out, and so am I, to be honest. But what I think about it, I think he's after his own ends. He's a snake in the grass, and I loathe the man, so...
Whilst it's perfectly legitimate to have a discussion about the burqa, and indeed all other religious garments, such a discussion has to be carried out in a respectful and considerate way. However, Boris Johnson's article in the Daily Telegraph was, in my opinion, clearly racist and inciting. There should be no toleration shown for Mr. Johnson's comments. There should be no acceptance shown to what he said. What he said about the burqa was absolutely unforgivable, and this man needs to issue an apology, and the Conservative Party needs to take disciplinary action against Mr. Johnson, including perhaps him losing the Conservative whip.
Well, Boris Johnson is not new to controversy. The fact is that he seems to have a big mouth and he unleashes it. And he is controversial, he's provocative. And, sometimes he's forced to apologize, sort of tactically. Other times he sort of continues it. I remember when he was attacking people of Liverpool and he created huge controversy. There was no reason for it. There's no political goal. But also he's known to actually use this as a tactic to actually get greater popularity and go in certain direction and show and sort of sell himself in a certain way.
A new poll does show that roughly a third of people in Britain do view the comments by former Foreign Minister Boris Johnson on the burqa, that's a full body dress for Muslim women, as racist. What are the public's thoughts?
They are racist to a certain extent, but at the same time he is being honest. About time we had someone in the government that was honest. So, yeah, he shouldn't have said it in a way.
I think it's a bit strong to call it racist. I think it's thrown around quite a lot nowadays. And yeah, like I said, I think it was just probably something he threw out without really thinking too much about what he was saying. I wouldn't call it racist.
I think sometimes he just says the first thing that comes into his head. And this is not the first occasion that he's been undiplomatic and unstatesmanlike.
Boris is many things, but I wouldn't say he was racist. No, just I think making a point that is echoed by millions of people that perhaps nowadays has to be politically correct and not mentioned. So he's probably just saying what a lot of people feel, but I don't think he's racist, no.
I can see where people are coming from, because a lot of people are saying that you can't go into petrol garages if you're wearing a helmet, so why should someone go in a burqa? It's borderline, put it that way.
No, I don't think it's racist. I think it's just it's a religious set and it's just people's personal opinion.
I don't think it's anywhere racist. No. I think he's just speaking his mind.
I think they're racist because you can't just describe people like that because of what they're wearing. Like, say if we went around saying he looked like milk chocolate, he wouldn't like it, would he? It's the same thing.
It has an element of racism in it. He's used a very vulnerable section, a relatively small section of our community, to denigrate and insult. I just think it's just unnecessary. We're supposed to be a tolerant country. It's getting less so, and it's concerning me.
Yes, I do believe Mr. Johnson's comments about the burqa are racist. And I think also as well that spotlight needs to be put on the Daily Telegraph, because the Daily Telegraph ran an article which is clearly racist and inciting. Could you imagine if a politician in Britain had made a similar offensive comment about a garment that some Jewish people wear? Now, that would have been unacceptable. However, I believe the reaction of many British politicians and the reaction of British mainstream media would have been very different to the reaction they have shown over Mr. Johnson's comments. Mr. Johnson's comments, although they have been covered, they have not been anywhere near the ferocity that they would have been had Mr. Johnson made a comment about a Jewish garment.
Britain, like the rest of Europe, is actually becoming more and more xenophobe and fascist, and fascism and right-wing ideologies are being sold to people in Europe, and we are seeing day by day the solution to every problem is indeed becoming sort of more racist, and sort of saying that as long as we get rid of these people, be it Muslims, be it sort of Europeans, or be it people of different color, then all our problems will be resolved. And Brexit was as a result of that. So I'm not surprised. Actually, as a matter of fact, I think the fact that there's only that many rather than a much larger number, it sort of shows that he really miscalculated.
Some argue that Boris Johnson's insulting comments about Muslim women wearing the burqa were a deliberate attempt to reach out to the racists and fascists in the United Kingdom. Does the public here in central London agree?
I think most people know that that's the direction he wants to head, and it is going to help him by being honest like he is.
I think he did for a while, because didn't he stab Michael Gove in the back a while ago? Yeah, it could be. I'm not sure.
He's outspoken, and I think he wants to attract a certain voter and a certain sector of support in the British community.
Yes, 100%. I think now's a good time, and I think it is part of his political chess game, and perhaps the worrying thing is he might actually do it.
Not really, because he could have had that chance after Brexit. So if he wanted to be Prime Minister, wouldn't he have just taken the opportunity there? Wouldn't he have stuck out being Foreign Secretary rather than leaving? So
No, I think he's making a statement to become Prime Minister.
No, I can't see him going for the far right there. I think it's just an opinion. I don't see him being racist in any way. No.
I wouldn't say so. He's always been that kind of character. He's a bit like Donald Trump. He's a type of character that would say stuff to flare things up. He's trying to get back into the public eye, I would say.
I do. I think he's trying to catch the Nigel Farage people, all of whom are desperately looking for somewhere to go, because everything seems to be up for grabs at the minute in this country. It's very concerning, I personally, speaking as a socialist.
Unless you know Boris Johnson personally, it is very difficult to tell what motivated the man into making this obscene comment about Muslim women who wear the burqa. However, it is very clear that this man holds some very right-wing views, which are very concerning views. He is also friends with some very right-wing people in America who, in my opinion, have explicitly made racist comments, such as Steve Bannon and Donald Trump. Also, we need to take this into consideration. Mr. Johnson resigned this summer, but he resigned for tactical reasons. He believes he has a God-given right to lead the Conservative Party and to lead the United Kingdom. And I believe it is possible that by making this comment in the article in the Telegraph, he's trying to galvanise the right wing of the Conservative Party into supporting any leadership bid that he puts himself forward into. Mr. Johnson is a very selfish man, though he's a very shrewd man, and he knows that offensive comments about Muslim people in the United Kingdom play to an audience, and that audience is his right-wing audience.
Boris has lost popularity. Boris is now not in favour within the Conservative Party, and he needs to relaunch himself. And usually people of his background, when they want to relaunch themselves, they actually think that Islamophobia is actually a great platform to do so, because we are facing huge Islamophobic sort of tendencies, because the fact that we are living in an environment of hate against Muslims. And so more and more people are actually buying into this hatefulness against Muslims. And it really makes sense. It makes sense, and he's a calculator. He's obviously calculated that by being Islamophobe and unleashing this, I'm going to relaunch my career and my popularity. And it's obvious he's taking that route. Now, to what extent he's going to be successful remains to be seen. But we are seeing politicians one after another, and it's not just Conservative Party. I remember Jack Straw made the same calculation, and he actually unleashed against the sort of people wearing face covering. And the reality is that the numbers of people wearing niqabs and in Britain are so small that it really is not an issue. It's only an issue when politicians are trying to actually sort of get their popularity by showing their credential of being Islamophobe.
According to results of a survey by Sky News, 60% said it was not racist to compare Muslim women wearing the Islamic veils to bank robbers and letterboxes. Just 33% of the respondents thought it was racist. 48% believe he should apologise, but 45% said he should not. In the same poll, 60% supported banning the burqa in public, and only 26% opposed such a ban.
The campaigning organisation Tell Mama has said that at least 5 women
have been subjected to Islamophobic insults by men in London and Luton since Johnson triggered the public row over wearing the burqa. What does the public think about this?
Yeah, of course there is. I think people just know that they're sort of the faces of it, so they're the ones being picked on.
There are obviously going to be people who are actually racist, and I think, you know, if you think Boris Johnson's comments were racist, you could make a link there. You could probably make a link with a lot of other people who said stuff. I think there's a big difference between saying something a bit flippantly and actually acting in a racist way. So I would say that, for me, I'd say that connection's a bit dubious.
I think that maybe there is a connection. These things hit the press, they're in the headlines, it's everywhere. And this is the danger of saying things like this. You don't know how a certain type of person is going to react. And I think this is why politicians do have to be very careful about what they say.
No, they shouldn't be doing that at all, really. You know, whatever the law is, we should abide to it. So
That could happen on anywhere, on any given time. So I don't think it's directly connected to Boris Johnson.
I can't really comment on that. I don't know.
I think it's wrong that any person, you should be able to wear what you want to wear. But I don't agree with the veil, that you can't see a person's face. I think you should be able to look a person in the eye.
I don't think anyone should be attacked because of what they wear, and anyone should be judged because of what they wear. So I think it's wrong again. Like, we can't be acting like this in this day and age. Everyone should be allowed to wear what they want, when they want, how they want.
It makes me feel embarrassed, ashamed to live in this country. I never thought I'd see it. I thought these things were beginning to shift, you know, major-wise, and it's everything, especially, well, there are so many issues, it's just like, where are we at the moment? I think the whole referendum situation allowed so many things to be, in a sense that there were things burst, but sometimes, you know, you need healing wounds and not to burst things. Sometimes you need to put things over to encourage more tolerance. It's education, really.
Mr. Johnson's comment was reprehensible. The fact that the Daily Telegraph ran his article was reprehensible. And it was inevitable that there would be attacks on Muslim women in the UK wearing the burqa. Because when you have a very senior politician like Mr. Johnson, who was once Mayor of London and who was Foreign Secretary, when someone of that stature makes this sort of explicit racist comment, in the eyes of some people in Britain, that will give legitimacy to attacking a Muslim woman wearing the burqa. So no one should be surprised. And in my opinion, given Mr. Johnson's article was inciting, and given the Daily Telegraph ran an article that was inciting, the police really should be investigating this matter.
Well, in reality, despite what Tell Mama is saying, and Tell Mama really is, their sort of vision is only, and what they calculate is only on social media and the internet. And the reality is that Muslims are living in the real life and they're facing discrimination day in, day out. And statements like this have proven over and over that unleashes the wrath of the racist and Islamophobe against our community. And without having any sort of protection, without having any sort of institutional support. And the fact of the matter is that our report showed this very clearly, that overwhelming majority of Muslims see Islamophobia and creation of environment of hate as something that is actually promoted by politicians, promoted by the media, and it really becomes legitimized and creates this environment where overwhelming majority of people, without knowing, without realizing, become Islamophobic and hateful towards Muslim community.
What can be done to stop political racism affecting the social condition of a community?
On the racist side of things, yeah, obviously you can't start chucking things around like that. But at the same time, you do need people to be honest. Honest is the best way to go, really. So it's a bit of a hard one, that.
That's a difficult question. Yeah, well, you look at Trump in America, and he should be carrying himself with a lot more presidential decorum than he does. And there's obviously an onus on politicians to speak with a level of decorum, which they don't always do. So, yeah, they've got to be careful. But at the end of the day, you've also got to remember they're human beings. And they're on camera 24 hours a day. And if we were all on camera 24 hours a day, I'm sure everyone in the country would have said something stupid. So I wouldn't be too harsh on them.
I think all politicians shouldn't need to be restricted. I think they should all have a sensible, even head on their shoulders and know that what they say is listened to and reported and censor it before it comes out. I don't think there should be any need for restriction.
No, I'm a big believer in freedom of speech. You can make your point, it's how you put your point across, but no, we've got to keep freedom of speech, really.
Free speech is important. This is what makes us a great country at the end of the day. So, yeah, I think definitely speak your mind and what you believe in. And if we didn't do that, we'd be like going back to the days of Libya and everything like that. So that's what we don't want to be.
People understanding what the Muslim religion's about. In that same religion, there's extremists in it, and I think the burqa, and if you go to the blue burqa, which is complete facial, I wonder if people understand what it's all about. And I don't even think the native people understand what it's about, you know, but it is a big religious problem, you know, or a religious set.
I'm an Irishman and I had enough of races all my life. So what you're going through is just what everybody. If it's not you, it's the blacks, and it's somebody else. I think you're always going to have that with people.
Just educating people. I think just educating people, because the more you're educated, the more you know about each other's cultures, and just try and reach out to everyone.
We need to start young. We need to teach our children to be tolerant, to be kind, to be thoughtful, just your basic morals. I think some of the moral education in this country is really lacking. I can't believe that I'm saying that because I'm not any particular religion, but I respect all religions, and if it means something to you, it's important to respect it.
First thing is this: Britain needs a free and independent media. I am absolutely in favour of a candid and raucous discussion about any issue, any subject matter in Britain. However, the discussion always has to be respectful, it always has to be considerate, it always has to be professional and intelligent, and there must be no toleration shown to any discussion which has elements of discrimination in it. When it comes to anti-Semitism, anti-Semitism is alive in Britain, and anti-Semitism is one of the most awful forms of racism. But there is also racism towards Muslim people. And if the British media are sincere in tackling racism and other forms of discrimination in Britain, then they will clamp down on any politician equally who makes a disgusting comment about Jewish people or a disgusting comment about Muslim people. Until the British media learns to behave in a responsible and even-handed way, unfortunately, there will be future articles appearing which are clearly racist towards Muslim people.
Well, we have been arguing for a very long time that politicians and media need to be held accountable. And the reality is that it is they who create this environment, who strengthen it, who actually legitimize it and normalize it. And without addressing that issue, and indeed even not just in media, but even the popular media, without addressing in those arenas, then Muslims are going to suffer. Then we see this environment of hate will become much worse. And ordinary people, and I emphasize this, ordinary people in this environment become Islamophobe and hateful towards innocent Muslim community.
Many believe Boris Johnson is seeking to build his popularity among Conservative members to finally replace Theresa May, who is struggling to keep her post in the face of growing criticism about her Brexit strategy. But whatever his motives, many now believe his comments are designed to promote his political status at the cost of these provocative comments.
British Prime Minister Theresa May has criticised Boris Johnson for those comments. She said his words were clearly offensive. So, the current Prime Minister has attacked someone who hopes to be Prime Minister. But are those comments deliberately planned to get Mr. Johnson closer to being Prime Minister? We'll see if it works. But if it does, many will feel a sense of outrage and others will be afraid. Very afraid indeed.